love it.
You really like it?
Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
a little Congo beat.
That's like the first club beat I think
Yeah.
I ever made.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you. See?
I do too.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. We are live.
Because Facebook is kind of annoying.
Thank you. I'm like, how do I start?
I've been using it for years and I still feel that way. It's like it keeps getting clunky, you know?
By the way, I love
Am I supposed to be like
Oh yeah? Thank you.
Yeah, you can. That way you can
I'm
see.
always grateful for the encouragement you guys give over us.
Yeah. Is this the right thing? Because it said join.
Oh, that's the primary.
Oh,
Okay.
that's not it.
You
Okay.
can join that primary group, but
How do I find? Okay.
So you see where it's at?
I wonder why it's not letting me
I
see.
don't see it.
I see it. We've been live for 18 minutes.
I say 2 weeks.
And mine say 2 minutes now.
Sometimes Facebook is, they probably trying to listen to the music, trying to see if they can block it.
This not y'all.
It's mine.
Yeah, but
You can't block this track, Facebook, because they made this, okay?
They
Because we
own
have the
rights.
engineers here.
They own rights
So,
to this
that's
music.
right. So we don't have to put, we don't own the rights to this music. Right?
Yeah.
They're on there trying to figure out, are we gonna block it? Let's listen. Taking it through the, the engineer act.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out whose sound is this.
it's crazy.
Isn't that funny?
There's an app called Twitch and they're even worse with it. They're
Really?
just, yeah. They have like these super strict rules and get really
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
fan happy.
I gotta. Alright, we're gonna start in a minute, guys.
Gonna start. Give us a
We're
minute.
just trying to make sure everything is good.
Is it this one?
Trying to give you all access.
This one?
No, that's last week.
Oh, video.
It does say about 20 minutes. We have been live for 20 minutes. Then it says 4 minutes.
That's it.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Okay, good. Okay, let's share. Oh, it's doing the thing that it did last week. It's
What?
not letting me click on it.
really?
Remember?
It's so weird.
Yeah. It just says live now, but I can't touch it.
Let me see.
Maybe YouTube.
YouTube is live.
I'm gonna get my IG back so I can share it on my IG.
Yeah, I like that.
The more I listen to it, the more it's growing on me.
I wonder why it's not.
Because you know when you're making beats, like you're there and you're in like the mode for so long, and then you
Yeah.
like have to force yourself to stop listening.
Well, I don't know.
Otherwise, you stop like enjoying.
I don't want to go down your thing, so.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There have been days like I listened to a song so much and I kept changing it,
Wow.
and I would just take away from what I had originally.
Wow.
Instead instead of just like trusting. Okay, let it rock for a bit, you know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's that creative minds, man.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, it came back in landscaping. Like they would tell me to edge out the mulch bed,
Yeah.
and I'd be so hyper fixated on the line being perfect. They'd be like, "Yo, just step back, take a look at it, see if it's good. All right, go from there. You got the big picture." And I'm like, "Oh wow." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna take little notes. That's for later, you know."
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Did you happen to share it to your page?
I did.
Okay, I'm gonna check your page then. I don't see it. That's the top thing I see. I don't see it.
Wait. What did she
You don't
post?
see mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tiana the goat.
I'm telling you, they're trying to figure out big about this trend world.
Yeah. I don't see anything else.
Yes, mine's is there. Look.
Yeah, mine is
That's
there.
on your page, right? It's not on your profile. It's so weird, man. Maybe next time you can just like tag us when you share it.
Yeah, I can actually do it.
Yeah. Let's try that. Okay. But yeah.
These little sandals you got.
These?
Mhm.
Like 'em?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, do you all live together?
Kind of green.
Yeah, I love that green. What
Do
do
you all live together?
Do we live together? No. We live with our parents.
Oh,
Yeah. And her mom's house is 5 minutes from mine.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Pretty far.
So, my mom moved to Norristown when I was like 15, 16. And he always had his mom's eldest sister, his aunt. She always lived in Norristown as well, like for years.
Mhm.
And I can like walk to her house from my mom's.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're literally within walking distance. And they were looking for a house for a few years. His parents, after they left New York, and they finally, like last year, like around the time before we started dating, they actually finally were able to buy a house. Like Christian family that owned it, like a lot of favor, and it was 5 minutes from my mom.
Wow.
Yeah. So our families have just been like
Yeah.
intertwined.
And we looked all over the place. Like I helped them look. I helped them. I
Yeah.
basically played the real estate agent.
Yeah.
We looked all over the place. We ended up right back in Norristown.
Wow.
And they were looking into different places too.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Ended
Crazy.
up right next to me.
Right next to each other.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And now the job is 3 minutes away from my house.
That's something
So
else.
I'm like, all right, this is favor right here. Like,
Oh, signs all over the place, huh?
yeah.
Sometimes you don't have to go far.
Oh yeah.
I hope I got
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
not in my neighborhood.
You never know. There's a
I
million
know,
of us
right?
that we're hiding.
That's true.
No, right?
You never know.
I'm over there, huh?
Let's get
Okay.
started.
Let's get started.
Get it.
I wasn't able to share it, but that's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You can check it in a minute and see if it comes up.
And it's picking up everything we say.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's picking up everything.
Yeah.
Because the mics are really good. Sound is really good.
Yeah.
No problem. It's okay. Oh, here we go.
All right.
You ready?
Can you see it?
Yep, I shared it.
All right, everybody. Hi. Thank you for being patient with us and waiting on us to get started. We're going to jump right into it. First, a disclaimer. Please excuse me if you see me drinking water or wiping my nose. My mind was ready for spring, but I guess my body was not ready. So my allergies are kicking in, but the show must go on, and we're going to get right into it. Back with Adrian and Linda on Doing It the Right Way Part 2. And I'm Asia hosting today, and my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Asia.
And we have Adrian and Linda back to finish finishing part 2 of Doing It the Right Way. So we're going to get right back in where we left off as into what happened after your disagreement and how did you get back on track.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you guys mind just giving a refresher? What was the last thing we had talked about, and what was the last
Yeah,
thing?
shit. Go. You wanna go in?
I need a refresher on like what was the we were
Okay.
on a thought and then we had
I got you. All right, so basically the last thing we may have talked about was after, you know, Linda may have kind of like put herself out there to you. And you kind of seeked counsel,
Yeah.
right? So you sought out counsel and got wisdom from Joe,
Mhm.
right? And then after that, we were kind of talking about how you guys kind of regrouped together.
Yeah.
I know you talked about doing prayer together, that you guys went and did prayer together. And I kind of don't know. I think that was the last thing. I'm not sure. I know we talked about, we were kind of going into as far as like temptation,
Mhm.
how you guys kind of had some trials and tribulations there. And kind of just how you guys worked it out as far as like coming together, like what actually brought you together, how that happened. We talked about Valentine's Day,
Mhm.
how
Asking
you
us
know
to,
you guys went out and you got some food. I don't know if
Yeah.
it was chicken or something like
Fried
that.
chicken.
Fried
It's,
chicken, yes.
Lover
They're asking
special.
us to talk more into the mics.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about how you guys had fried chicken,
Yes.
and that was on Valentine's Day. And then I think that's about it. That's where you got. What you got? What you got?
So I think we also left off on that kind of moment right before you started to sort of get the clarity you needed right before you asked
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah. So I remember, you know, I guess we'll kind of summarize and then we'll move forward from there. Like, so I was telling everybody last episode, I had Linda had gotten the confirmation that the Lord had me in mind for her, but I had gotten no such confirmation at the time. So here I am. I'm focused. I'm doing what I'm doing. Trying to just be a man of God in the midst of like a season where I wasn't in a traditional church setting.
Yes.
So then I remember, yes, I caught feelings for a good friend of ours and expressed to Linda how I was feeling because I was kind of like alarmed. I was like, oh my God, like what? I didn't think this would happen. Because again, I was getting over waiting for a person for a long time
Yes.
and thinking that it was the Lord, but it really wasn't. And it was like all of a sudden not having that, I have to wait for this person. It's just like your options open and it can be a little overwhelming, right?
Yes.
So at that point, she expressed, well, she encouraged me, she calmed me down, but then she was just like, oh yes, by the way, I have feelings for you. And that was when I had to go into a season of prayer, and I was freaked out. I was
Right.
kind of, in a way, hurt by that because it was like a jarring transition. I kind of came in confidence and was just going through a lot of insecurities at the time. So then I just entered like a new level of submission to Christ, where I was just praying, asking the Lord, like, what are these feelings I have?
Yes.
How do I process them? What's of Him? What's of my flesh?
Yes.
And I remember one of the biggest things for the men, Pastor Joe was encouraging me. He said, when you don't know what to do, continue being faithful in where God has you.
Wow.
So for 2 months, I was just continuing to do the basics, spending time with the Lord, fellowshipping with Him, and trying to honor starting the business and teaching, learning like a year of self-study.
Yes.
And it was 2 months of just that, just being content and not getting an answer.
Yeah.
And it was a painful time because I wasn't speaking to the girl that I caught feelings for, or our friend that I had caught feelings for at the time, and I wasn't speaking to Linda. So it was kind of like all of a sudden I was hidden, and I was just with the Lord and Pastor Joe and some other brothers, but it was just like much different. I was like, wow, this is new. I'm terrified that I'll make like a wrong decision, that I'll just all these insecurities. So finally, the Lord breaks his silence after 2 months. And with me, sometimes when he breaks his silence, he comes out like with double confirmation or triple confirmation. So I just got
sorry,
yeah. Go
before
ahead.
you even get into that. Meanwhile, that 2 months I was personally also having to deal with, what God was allowing to be brought up in me, and I had to really just let him minister to me. And as he was dealing with the things coming out of me, I also was being encouraged at the same time to just trust him. And all I knew was that I kind of was just like, okay, God, well, I'm holding all this with hands open, because at the end of the day, just that tried and true, word that what is for you will be for you no matter what. I just had to apply that. Like, you know what? There's nothing I can do in this case, you know what I'm saying? So, if God doesn't do it, or if it's not really God, then it's not going to happen, and fine, I submit to that. But if there's going to be another outcome, then God will surely come through, and it will make sense. It's not going to be confusing. So I sort of
Yes.
just put it on God, and, of course, the process of walking through that was still uncomfortable. But, I think we both did a good job just going our separate ways for the time being, and still, in a sense, like saving our friendship to an extent,
Yeah.
even though there was a lot more distance. So, yeah, get into what happened right before,
So when you did when you were doing your like self-evaluation and stuff like that, were you guys in contact? Were you guys still talking? How often did you talk, if you were talking?
I think that we decided not to hang out in person anymore for those 2 months. Like, we
Yes.
kind of just stopped hanging out. We ended up, putting a pause to even the driving lessons that we were doing together, I believe. We did probably check in via text, right?
Yeah, we checked in every now and then, but it really was like
It wasn't deep. Yeah.
from a season of closeness to
Mhm.
season of distance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was like we were still friends, but
Yeah. There's just a lot more distance now.
Yeah.
And just like a level of boundary, I guess, now.
More boundaries.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
the sense
like-
of like now it's like kind of a wall.
out of
a
like
little bit.
defense too, because
Mhm.
we didn't know, like
Mhm.
I didn't know what to do per se,
Yep.
and she didn't know what to do per se, and then on top of that, she lived with the person that I had said
Right.
I felt for, so like it just was like very complicated, and
Mhm.
uh,
Oh yeah.
at the time we just thought it best to seek the Lord, focus on Him, and yet still keep an open hand to see what was happening. Like for her,
Yeah.
she was keeping that open hand about me being like someone who the Lord had, and for me, I was more just like, man, I've had 10 years plus that I was thinking about this one person as the only option, and now all of a sudden I have two, and I was just so concerned about
Which
being
I said, no,
led
don't look at it
astray,
like
and
that.
you know, yeah. So for me, I was just in my head so much that I feel like I had to walk away and step away and just
Yes.
Yeah.
be like, okay, God, if I focus on this too much, I will not be able to get anything done. So I'm gonna
Right.
place it at your feet and then go about my day. And it was so difficult because it taught me a new level of like waiting and trusting.
My goodness.
Then I had all these like overwhelming feelings like, well, I'm 20, I was 22 at the time, right?
Mhm.
I'm like 22, I don't have money like that, I don't have this, I don't have that. Just going off of all the worldly things that I think I should have if I'm even
Yeah.
going to get into a relationship.
Mhm.
And the Lord wasn't looking at it like that. Like I had a vision, I had a purpose, I knew what my
Yeah.
calling was,
Yes.
and He brought her into my life to increase me. So it was like all these insecurities I was holding, all this rejection, it was like pointless. But I do believe those 2 months were necessary for me to kind of
Yeah.
process the past,
Yep.
release it, and then get, clarity on the future.
For
That's
sure.
kind of like how it went.
Yeah.
Now for you, Linda,
Yes.
by you living with someone that
Mhm.
he was interested in, how was that for you towards
Yeah.
her?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that there was a temptation for that thing to bring a division amongst us, and I think that it was also a temptation for me to be caught up in, insecurity or comparison. And that certainly did try to come for me, and I had to deal with that. But I think that I'm really glad that there was just a transparency between me and her at the time. And I think that even though it was like a messy process, because it's like no woman wants to be in that position. It wasn't pleasant for her. It wasn't pleasant for me.
So
Like,
she was aware of it.
oh yeah, like the thing is that she just so happened to like she knew that I had feelings for Adrian like way back months
Oh, wow.
prior.
Yeah.
So it was
Oh.
like, you know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
were all just more or less good friends and just like, so she knew like that there was a development between me and him personally. They weren't like speaking as constantly in comparison, but like since I lived with her and she's also a very good friend, it was just like I had to just be very honest and transparent. So it was very humbling that I just had to like I remember at certain occasions just tell her like, okay, so I feel like I'm either comparing myself or I feel like I'm thinking these thoughts and I'm feeling this way and whatever, and so I had to say those things a few times. And you know what I mean, I feel like there are some ways in which I'm really glad that at least on my part I was able to be transparent, even though it was like, you know what I mean, like it wasn't like an amazing thing that happened, but I'm glad that I could be transparent. I'm glad she could be understanding. And you know what I mean, like I feel like
Yeah.
she handled it as best as she possibly could have. And I think that whether or not anything could have been done differently on my part or on his part or anyone else, like at the end of the day, God really brought everything around for good.
Yes.
And I think like that's a great testimony that came of that situation, that
Yes.
like it still worked together for good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really just like God's will still happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that whatever God intended on doing in that season was still accomplished. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So for sure. You
Yeah,
know
I
what I mean?
like that. I like what you shared, because a lot of times we have like,
Yeah.
like when we lean on our own understanding, we
Yeah.
have this concept that
Yeah.
everything has to be so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
For sure.
but we know that God works in the midst of it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, that's like how He meets you where you are.
Yeah.
So you were in that situation. You guys were there. You was like, it's like
Mhm.
what I like to compare to like watching a movie.
Yeah.
You know how you watching a movie and you know like the husband come in and he just had a bad day,
Mhm.
but she don't know that. He was at work,
Yeah.
and then he come in with an attitude and he start going off on her and you're like, but he's not even mad at her.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
she wasn't in that previous scene.
Right.
We saw it
Right.
by watching it, right? We
Yeah.
know that, he loves his wife, right? But he may have just gotten into an altercation or the enemy could have attacked him in the car. But we don't know that.
Mhm.
Well, she doesn't know that, but we know it.
Yeah.
So I like to compare those things to like how God works when he's looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when he's looking at this thing play out in your life.
Mhm.
Like, you're in that situation and he just worked it out.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
And I also want to make a note of the fact that God also was ministering to me through different people
Wow.
during those, well, even of course prior to that happening, but also like April till the end of May, which I believe you reached out to me again at the end of May. So for those 2 months, God did minister to me, and there was a specific word that He used the sister to give me, which was just like speaking about a specific person or people that He would send my way, and the kind of things she was saying was, it was ministering to my heart about having a confidence in God that the man He had for me, like I applied that to relationship, right? Like that He would fight for me, and so like it was a word about being fought for and
Wow.
chosen, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
there's just this is even kind of vulnerable to share, but amen, like just even a word about being not an option, but like not a Leah but a Rachel, like not
Yes.
a kind of second option, but
choice.
but the choice, right? So it's like I had to receive that. I realized just for myself that like
Wow.
this is what God says about me, period, even regardless of a person, you know what I mean? Like I just had to receive that truth.
Yes.
And that's something that I think you know, even to this day, man, like the Lord is still solidifying that, you know, what that means.
Yes.
Because it can apply to like every other area of your life, like to be chosen by God, to be qualified, not just like, you know, some
Right.
person that fills whatever
Mhm.
the
Yes.
scraps, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and no woman wants to be no scraps.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
You ain't a scrap.
That's right.
Or the other option.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah. So
You
I,
are the choice.
that's the truth. So I think that,
Yes.
man, there's so much that the Lord did and I learned, and you know, I feel like we're still learning.
Yes.
You know, He's still ministering, and yeah. So, amen to that.
Amen. So
Yeah.
wait, you were gonna talk about okay, after you did your, I wanna say, consecration. After you consecrated yourself.
Right.
Basically what it was.
Right.
I went
Right.
and hid in a
You
cave.
went ahead in the
Yeah.
cave and got, got strengthened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mountain.
You know, on the mountaintop,
Right.
you know, in your secret place. So,
Mhm.
so tell us, how did you guys, kind of like come back together as far as like, what was your approach to Linda?
Yeah, so I did want to add one extra like nuance to the situation.
Mhm.
When I did share my feelings for our friend, the way that she went about it was new to me
Yeah.
because I used to struggle a lot with rejection. So in the past, I had like a lust stronghold and a rejection stronghold. Like I would kind of have both at the same time, and what that caused me to do was always look at a relationship as like, oh, this will save me, this will make things better for me. That happened early in my life. I couldn't even realize like the root of it. So what did the Lord do? He saw that I like had a heart for him. I gave my heart early, so he would always defend me. But the defense sometimes looked like rejection. So sometimes
Yeah.
I'd get upset and hurt. So the other thing was I had 2 previous experiences of rejection that were very painful that I had not processed. It was like,
Yes.
it was part of my heart. It was like muscle memory, but I never got to mourn the fact that it hurt very bad those 2 times.
Yes,
Because I
yes.
fixated and I chased, and it was like all a fleshly, in my own strength thing. And as men, sometimes we can struggle with like, oh, I like her, I'm going to chase, and I don't care if God's saying no. You know, so that was a new level to which I had to learn. And that was actually what I was terrified of. I was like, well, this happened to me in the past, and the last time I got rejected. It's like the same argument as, well, I'm afraid that this is too good to be true.
Wow.
The shoe's going to drop, and then I realized I had all this anxiety, all this lack of faith. So as we progressed through the 2-month period of like consecration that I was going through, me and Linda weren't talking very much, but right away, our friend said she fasted, she prayed, and then she said the Lord said no. And so even the way she went about it was edifying to me, because I was just like, oh, I just got rejected. But that's so sweet. Like it wasn't
Wow.
it wasn't
Yeah.
the way I had received it. It was more like, oh, she prayed, we're both Christian, we're both grown, she gotta know. So then I can go pray.
Yes.
And it was so much more simple and peaceful, because the other 2 times I had received rejection, there wasn't any resolution. It was just
Yeah.
silence,
Mhm.
no communication.
Right.
So all that time I was just actually releasing rejection complexes and strongholds, and just allowing the Lord to minister to what I went through when I was younger. And finally, after that 2-month end, he just started giving me clarification and revelation, like how Linda and I coming together was so strategic and so like a blessing. Like he just gave it to me very plain, like how I could trust that I'm trying to find words. Like I don't have to put my guard up when it comes to liking somebody. I don't have to like be so nah, this isn't the Lord, so let me like shut it down. Because remember, I had felt feelings for her on Valentine's Day, like
Yeah.
when we went out on our on our dinner,
Right.
even like
You
which
pushed
became
it
a date, I got hit with this like,
Yeah.
wow, she's really beautiful. Like I really am attracted to her.
Yeah.
But I had punched it down so hard because in my mind, anytime that happens, it was just, okay, that's for me to kill. That's for me to.
Yeah.
So it's just, it was like a thing that was unique to my situation. And then finally the Lord reveals I have the permission to feel for her, and there's purpose. And I had never received both at the same time.
I love
Confirmation.
purpose. I
Yeah.
love purpose. Feeling purpose. I love that.
Yeah. And so then, like,
And that was on Resurrection Sunday, around that time.
around that time, yeah.
It
'Cause
was around that time.
For me, it really was like a resurrection. Like, if you
Yeah.
spoke the R word to me, like, relationship, I would get visibly tight.
Yeah.
I would get visibly like upset, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Don't talk to me about that. I'm gonna go serve the Lord or something." Like I was so burnt about that. It was like a trigger word for me.
Oh, me too.
And that's like
That's real.
that's the Lord working on our hearts. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
because we want what we want, and He wants
Yeah.
to give us what we want,
Yes.
but our flesh wants what it wants too. And
Yeah.
while we're going in that waiting, it's like He's taking things out of us that we didn't
Sure.
even realize were there. Like later on. I
Yeah.
won't give it away too much, but the Lord started showing me deeper levels to which I needed to be delivered from
Yes.
things that I had no idea were a part of me. So, this is the interesting part. I get the confirmation, I get the clarity,
Yes.
and all of a sudden, I'm feeling terror. Like pure terror. And I remember finally I was like, well, you know, I have to choose to trust God. Like, if this is the woman He has for me and I'm allowed to feel for her, then I can go out and step out in faith. But I had another dilemma. I had so knocked down my emotions and disassociated that for me it was actually a faith step. Because
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it so intensely, but it was like I had to trust that what the Lord showed me in the spirit would happen in the natural.
Yes.
Because I knew that I felt very strongly for Linda. I knew that it was very attractive. But I had pushed it down so hard that I had to like come out of that and be like, well, I trust you, God. Like I am attracted, but okay, I'm gonna let you bring this out of me. I'm gonna trust you with that part of my heart, that
Right.
that level of my masculinity that I had not entered
That's good.
into.
Yes.
Like
that's
that was
really good.
that was like, okay, let me not touch that side of my masculinity because it was so
Yeah.
belabored, and
Wow.
I had all this like history with porn and masturbation that further
Yes.
like solidified a rejection complex.
Right.
So it wasn't like I had ever experienced like where I'm like, oh, I'm chasing and that's it. It was more like, well, I have to go ahead. What the heck? Like, this is weird. And I was constantly like, am I an imposter? Am I a fraud? Am I really hearing from the Lord?
Yes.
Shout out to Pastor Joe, because he was just like always encouraging me.
Always.
You hear from the Lord? Like, relax. And I'd be like, are you sure though? And so finally, I decided I'm gonna let Linda know how I feel, because we were getting into that mode where it's like, okay, well, we're just friends. And
He's getting in the friend mode.
we're getting into friend mode.
Yeah.
And if you ever seen movies, you can't let that rock. You gotta get up ahead of it right away. Otherwise, you're gonna be frustrated. And there truly is a time for everything. So I knew it had already been 2 months. I had to let Linda know how I felt. And so
Yeah.
I made the decision. And I kid you not, the day that I was gonna tell Linda, I had two of the nastiest dreams I've ever experienced.
Wow.
And it was just like, all of a sudden there was a spiritual like warfare attachment to it.
Wow.
So I was like, well, man, I was feeling terror, and now I'm getting attacked in my sleep, like sleep paralysis.
Yes.
What the heck is going on? I'm kind of nervous, but hey, I'm gonna move in faith because I believe that what God said to me is true.
Yes.
So I go and I tell her how I feel, and I want you to take it away from there. Like, what was it like for you when I told you how I felt?
Yeah, so he had asked me to meet up, and he was like, I'd like to talk, and I'm like, okay, here we go. We're gonna talk. And, yeah, we went to, like, Media, PA.
Yes.
That was cute.
Media, PA.
He took me to Media. And
What's that? What's media?
It's a township west of Philly, and it's like this
Yeah,
really
it's
nice
cute.
little
it's a
township.
cute little place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we met up in Media, and, basically, at one point, we were having our little food or whatever, and you had told me like, okay, and you were really struggling to tell me that you liked me.
I was definitely struggling.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
he was I was just patiently waiting, like, okay, I'm listening.
She was just like this, basically.
Yeah, literally, I was like, okay.
That's what the meeting was about?
What is it?
Did you know before getting there that that's what was coming?
I might have had an inclination that it could have come from it,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I just came without expectation. Like, it's not that I came without any hope that things were gonna have a positive outcome, but I kind of was just like, okay, let's see what he has to say. Like, the ball's in his court, and at the end of the day, I was like, okay, let's see. You know what I mean? So, but definitely, it was definitely a joyful thing, because I think there was like a revival, happening, and I didn't see it coming per se that he would tell me that, like, not only was he personally, like, eventually he did tell me, like, listen, I have feelings for you, and it's like, this is new, whatever, and he asked me, I think there's some things that the Lord is still sorting, and at the right time I would love to, like, start dating, you know what I mean? So something like that. He was like,
I declared my intent.
yeah, I would love to
That's
start
a good-
dating,
I like
and
that.
at the right time,
Declare
like,
your intent.
yeah. So he made his intentions clear, and I think for me personally, it was also just like, wow, I've never experienced somebody actually having like a confirmation from God to pursue me. You feel me? Like,
Wow.
actually, like,
Wow.
God told you, God showed you dreams and visions, like
Yeah.
the good stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I never experienced that. So for me, that was like, wow, God. I've experienced hearing things in the spirit and seeing things in the spirit, but it not being like reciprocated like that, right? But in this case, it's like, wow, God actually spoke to you about me? Like, wow. Like, to me, that really touched me, because it's kind of like I wanted that kind of a situation from the Lord. I didn't want to be in a situation where I was getting all these ookie spookies, but the person was like, not, like, you better be getting dreams and visions, and you better be hearing from the Lord too, if I'm going to hear it. That
Yeah.
was just me. Like, that was my preference between me and God. Like, if I'm going to be hearing something, it doesn't matter unless he's also speaking to the person. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that it kind of just ended like this, or started like this rather, that you
Definitely
actually told me
started.
that that's what happened. It was like, wow. That really was just like another confirmation that, like, okay, we're going to journey through. We're going to, go for the ride, adventure.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
yeah, so basically I was like, yeah, and he did ask me, like, would you be willing to wait as, we just let the Lord do some stuff in us, and I was kind of like, yeah, for sure I will, and I also have feelings for you, like, as you already knew, so I would definitely, be willing to wait, so we both just on the same page,
Yeah. And
that was nice.
it was like the timeline was different than anything I had ever experienced. I had only known
Yeah.
how to go full speed ahead.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
in that regard, I was
Yeah.
like, well, I have feelings for you. I got some confirmation, but some things are bothering me, right? I didn't
Right.
share that I had some crazy dreams and like
No,
warfare in the
right.
spirit. I just said,
Yeah.
some things are bothering me. I want to take some time to pray about it, get some confirmation from the Lord. And so we just kind of continued as friends on that core foundation, which I think lasted the 2 months because we weren't friends to get anything out of each other. We were friends because we love the Lord, and
Yes.
God
Right.
was
We were
actually
just good
in the
friends.
center
Right,
of our
right,
friendship, you
right.
know? So then, like, as time progressed, we were really blessed to have, like, a worship night with friends, and they prophesied over us and gave us, like, clarity. And then we fasted, I think, twice. Because for me, I was just terrified thinking that it was time to date. I'm like, what you mean, God?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not working yet. I feel not to work until the end of the year. Like, how is this going to work? Like,
Yeah.
my pride is all kicking. I'm like, I thought a man was supposed to provide and pay for the meal and
Right.
do all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you told me clear as day, like, put your full weight behind music, and here I am building a record label and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So all these insecurities are getting pulled out of me and all
Right.
these things, and we're praying,
Yeah.
and we were both experiencing extra levels of fear. Like
Yeah.
it didn't make sense how much fear we felt getting into
Wow.
a relationship. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
I
'Cause I
remember,
was experiencing it too.
yeah, I remember this the last time we fasted before we decided to start dating. First day was good, second day was good, and the third day, I felt so much fear. It felt like I couldn't exist. Like I don't. It was just like
Yeah.
in my head, over my shoulders, over my like countenance. Like I felt this weighty, like heavy fear
Yeah.
just attacking me, and then we got together and we talked and we prayed, and I was just like, you know, I'm just gonna speak in faith here. Anytime I feel this much fear,
Yeah.
it's clarity to go forward. But I mean,
Right.
I am terrified, and this is intense. But like, we've been asking the Lord and we've been praying, and we haven't gotten any no's. We've only gotten yeses.
Yes.
So we're getting yeses from the Lord and fear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
Yeah.
still a yes because fear does not dictate what you do.
Right.
It's like, you know what I mean? So God was really showing me how fear is to be dealt with. Like, yes, it can be as loud as it wants to be, but if the Lord says go here,
Mm-hmm.
we have to be strong and courageous. Like, we can't
Yes.
not
Yeah.
we can't not go with the Lord because we're feeling afraid. You
Yeah.
know, like that's not
Yeah.
better than the Holy Spirit saying yay or nay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then I'd be putting fear as my God,
Yes.
not the
Yeah.
Lord. So we
Right.
agreed
Mm-hmm.
to start dating.
Right.
And I remember it was so like we had this one day the day we agreed to start dating, we literally stayed up all night hugging each other
Really?
and ended up going to IHOP. Because if you could imagine, we're talking outside our house. She still lives in West Philly, and we're literally just hugging each other for like hours. I can't even remember how long we was hugging. We hugging for so long, the sun go down, the sun come up. We get so hungry, we go to IHOP.
Wow.
We had some beautiful times.
Yeah, I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. Like, we go out to IHOP, then we get to IHOP, and I meet this guy who's like a musician, and for me at the time, that was like the
Yeah.
Lord showing me, hey, I'll provide for you with the music thing. I know you're not making the headway you expected,
Yes.
but I still have this in mind for you. Because
Yes.
I expected, okay, he'll have me doing the music first. I have to earn my way to getting the blessing of a relationship.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, don't work like that. No. This isn't religion. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
Yeah.
it's
That's really
really,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, and that also happened to us consistently. Like the Lord, He's still doing it. Like we
Yes.
would just go anywhere, and we'll just meet specific people, like divine appointments after divine appointments, and man, God just said He stayed doing that to this day. You know?
Yep.
Yes.
Confirmation on top
Yeah.
of confirmation. And then this is where, you know, I want to add another layer to it.
Yeah.
We started dating and the Lord was moving, but the warfare got worse. I kept getting sleep paralysis dreams. I kept getting nightmares. At a certain point, I had gotten 9 nightmares in a row, like each day. And it was just
Wow.
like the most intense like trial and testing I've experienced. And like I would share it with Linda, but after a while I would have to go to Pastor Joe and be like, yo, Pastor Joe, I'm tripping out. Like
Yeah.
I'm casting, I'm binding, I'm rebuking. I got no lust in my life, but I'm getting attacked by a succubus, I'm getting attacked by incubus. Like, what the heck is going on? I don't know what's happening. I'm getting sleep paralysis. I'm dealing with this like defeatist mentality, because like when you cast things out and they still continue, it's like, how long you gonna take? Like, come on,
Yes.
man.
Mm-hmm.
And that just persisted. So the whole time, our relationship, we had to fight for joy in it, because while I'd be getting attacked, I'd have to deal with, okay, am I going to let this dictate what God said, or am I going to follow through with the
Yeah.
blessing that He's given me, which
Yeah.
is Linda, right? And so, you know, definitely want to go as the Spirit leads into that, but it's like, there's definitely been a level of trial and adversity that we've both experienced that I think now is a source of strength. But
Yeah.
in the time, we were really going nuts. Like, we were just like, man, like,
He wasn't sleeping for a while.
yeah.
He lost sleep, and you know, that was not easy. There was just so much, and yeah. But I feel like you guys probably have questions.
Yeah, we're good for
Yeah.
questions, man.
Oh no, so thank you for sharing. No, because a lot of times, you know, when we get into relationships, we're expecting it to be like this beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like gonna be, you know,
Yeah.
oh, you know, the glory. We just so in love and everything is so
Yeah.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, we would really like to believe that when God gives you a word and tell you that
Yeah.
the person is for you, like it's gonna be all heavenly
Mm-hmm.
from then on, right?
Mhm.
But we know that, you know, the enemy is also involved. You know,
Mhm.
he doesn't want you guys to be together. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
you know, he's not gonna make it easy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So, one of the things I may have had a question about is, um, once you guys, well, first of all, how did you fight the warfare? So you said you had warfare. So how did you fight the warfare? Was there like something that you guys did together? I know you said you guys fasted, but even after that, you got counsel. Did you also get counsel too, as far as like from Joe or from anybody else?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I definitely would keep in touch with Pastor Joe and Tiana at different points. They've been a great help. There was also another mentor couple that we would like consistently fellowship with, and they were like for a season, just because, you know. And I, before I even get into it, I just wanted to say, just to piggyback off of what you said, it's like the Lord approved us to enter into a wilderness together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was like. And that's really where we began to be refined.
Yeah.
And I think that it was hard because it also just so happened to have come in a time where we were transitioning out of a church community that we were part of for
Yes.
some years in college, and the Lord led us. Well, the Lord led me out first, and then when we came out together, it was just like pioneering. There were some people that there was like a fellowship that met online that we both ended up kind of getting our,
Mm-hmm.
you know, covering from for some time, and which of course Joe and Tiana are more or less affiliated with as well. So it's like we kind of got our sustenance from this online fellowship for some
Mhm.
months, and then we had
Yes.
our mentor couple as well, that we would consistently call like every week and like check in, and just like we had the hard conversations. We'd be like, this is what we're struggling with, this is what's going on, pray
Yes.
for us. Like we would always call them, and God bless them, Matt and Taryn, for always, you know, making time for us and just championing us. And yeah, it was just like for a season it felt like we were struggling through that, without the proper support system, like
Yeah.
because we didn't have like a church in person, and because he was struggling with his sleep, it was like we couldn't ever go somewhere on Sunday, or even just really meet up in person, because I think that's also when we were more or less coming out of the whole like everybody was away from church, like
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like COVID.
Yeah.
COVID time?
yeah.
Around June, it kind of transitioned and people started
Yeah.
going back into church.
Yes.
But at that time, God already was doing a new thing, and
Yeah.
we just so happened to transition into a new community. You know, so it's just interesting because it did feel like we were really just struggling to
Mm-hmm.
like figure out how to overcome these things without having the right support system.
Yes.
I had felt led to take a faith step and move back in with parents,
Yes.
and I left my house. I didn't sign my lease for the new year, and I just went back to live with my mom, and it was just like a faith step. Even that was just like a step of faith, and something which we're seeing the fruit now of those
Yes.
decisions.
Yeah.
We're seeing the fruit in these recent times of all that we laid down, but it's like for several months it was very much like we really just had each other, and we had those mentors, and we had like the online community, and it was kind of like rotating, and we did have like great friends that did support and champion us as well, but it was kind of like with the warfare and all those things, to an extent it was like we constantly were praying, we were
Mhm.
constantly just doing the best we could to stay sane and healthy, but
Yeah.
to an extent, like because there was no one else, and you know, not to get too deep into, you know, why we didn't have the support system, but you know, unfortunately, just because of circumstances, we kind of just had to figure it out alone for some
Yes.
time,
Right.
with like a select few, of course. But that was hard. That was a hard season, and thank God that He really just showed us that He didn't intend on us fending for ourselves alone.
Yeah.
That He didn't just lead us into that so that we would lose our minds or that we would be destroyed. Like, actually, God intended on us getting the healing and deliverance that was necessary individually and together.
Yes.
But
Even after we had stumbled too,
right,
Yeah.
you know, because
right. But that even through that, like, we learned, like, okay, God has people for us that are gonna help us and support us and champion us, which we needed and we prayed for. And finally, God did provide, and you guys are a part of that too.
yeah.
You know.
Amen.
So, thank God for Soul Church.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
so wait, before we go further, I just want to shout some people out because we have
Yes.
people on here. We just want to shout out Nelsa. Nelsa,
Hey,
say
Nelsa.
hey, y'all.
What's up?
We got Josephina.
Josepha?
Josepha.
Hey, Josepha. Hey,
Oh,
Sifa.
hi,
That's
Josepha.
my friend.
That's your friend?
Yeah, Sifa.
Oh, I
Hey,
love that
Sifa.
name.
Mm-hmm.
We also have Angelina. I don't know if that's your friend, but hey, girl. And we also have Tiana. She's on Miss Dingle.
Hey, Tiana.
Yay.
Pastor Joe was on there.
Pastor Joe was on there. Hey, Pastor Joe.
Hey, Pastor Joe. Hey, Tiana.
Sometimes you can so Facebook is so funny. Like sometimes you can see people and sometimes you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So it said now I can see Joe Dingle. Now I can see Pastor Joe.
So-
Hey.
Hey, Joan Tiana.
Oh my God. So hi everyone. If you guys have questions, please post your questions. So let's talk about the temptation and how you guys overcame those things.
For sure.
Like when you were you ever tempted? Were you ever tempted?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
You want to get into it?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, we both had innocent hearts. We both
Yeah.
wanted to serve God. We both on fire for God. And the more the heat turned up, the more we wanted to fight in the spirit. However, we started spending so much time together
Yeah.
and hanging out all night.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually relying on each other, I think in ways that we probably should have relied on the Holy Spirit and on others for.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, lust started to creep in, but it was a slow trickle. It was
Right.
like, it never starts all at once unless you're very blatant about it. Like, hey, I'm going to take all my values, all my boundaries, I'm going to burn them up, I'm going to throw them out the window, I'm going to
Right.
leap into this John.
Yes.
Right? Instead, it was like over time, well,
Yep.
maybe we're not going to get to bed on time because we want to hang out longer or because we're praying extra longer, but we know
Yeah.
we had the responsibility to work on
Mm-hmm.
what we wanted to work on, right?
Yes.
And in our case, she had lost her job for a reason that was out of her control, and then we both started to work on the label, and we basically said, all right, we're going to give it a quarter. We ran it by her mom and her fiance, and they even gave us the go-ahead, and we were trying that. But over time, just that spending so much time and sneaking over to her house and spending the night, it just was like over time we started to have lust creep in more and more, and then we started sharing things, kisses, and we started sharing other stuff like, oh, you know, you got a nice body, you know what I mean? And so
Words.
by God's grace, we never had sex, but you know, we did end up engaging in as close as you could get, and it was just like over time. The warfare didn't stop either, so I was still getting nasty dreams, sleep paralysis, deliverance, heavy condemnation. So I kept
Yep.
thinking like every time me and Linda had a trip up with temptation, that all of a sudden God's gonna leave me and He's not with me, and the fact that I'm not in the church, I'm not submitted, and He's just gonna swoop away and take His spirit from me, like crazy stuff that is not biblical, right?
Right.
And the whole time, like I remember, but there was a couple months where I just found it hard to tell Pastor Joe what was going on too. So, and then we had our other mentors, and it was hard to tell them. And then eventually, I just had to come to this conclusion where I was like, well, we meant well to start, but you know, now we're playing around too much, and we're dishonoring our parents because we don't have our own places. So it's one thing if we have our own places and we're doing this, but now we're sneaking around our families, and it's like that's even worse. So
Yeah.
it just hit me all at once. And then on top of all of this, we felt to get therapy, and the some of the advice given was not quite biblical. So we had advice to go ahead and cohabitate because on top of all this, there was a lot of family drama,
Yeah.
and that led us to kind of rationalizing it, being like, well, actually, I'm gonna save that for later. But basically, like, there was just so many layers to the warfare.
We ended up being in survival mode.
Yes.
And, unfortunately.
And then on top of all that, my sleep started to degrade from June until in November. I basically couldn't sleep at all. I was lucky if I got like 5 hours, 4 hours.
Wow.
And yeah, it was bad. I just couldn't sleep. And it was a mixture of deliverance, the Lord convicting me, and removing from me things. And
Right.
I would try my best to keep on doing the work, but I feel like what I needed at a certain point was a hard reset.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and when you ask that from the Lord, He'll give it to you. So,
Mhm.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you want to share anything about that, Linda?
Yeah, I think something that I've really learned is that I love how somebody in this church put it, like, at the end of the day, this flesh wants what it wants, and I feel like those things that happen between us, they wouldn't have happened had certain circumstances been a little better. So it's kind of like there are ways in which certainly we're responsible for those decisions, right? And thank God that He redeemed us, and that He corrected us, and that He used our friends in our community. But I realized that what I'm really proud of and thankful to God of is that God still allowed us to be redeemed, and that He changed the narrative. That just because we were going through all those things,
Yes.
that wasn't the end of the story. Like, God had a redemption, a healing, a deliverance. Like, He had it all in mind.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, we really went through a lot, made mistakes in that process, and it amazes me because I know that many would have lost their minds. Many would have lost their minds in such situations. And it was like an intense struggle that maybe certain people don't experience until several years of marriage. You know what I mean? Like, that's how
Yes.
it felt, like that level of wilderness that we went through, and that level of being just truly dependent on God and truly crying out, like, God, there's so many things where we need your help. But God met us through that, and He sustained us. We didn't lose our minds, and we came back. We bounced back with, like, a beautiful way that, we repented, and the Lord just blessed and breathed on everything. And I'm just so grateful that God just redeemed and restored relationships. He restored us. He set us on the right track again. Like, I'm just so thankful that He doesn't leave you. He doesn't leave you in your one place of struggle.
Right.
He still has it in mind to redeem you and redeem that narrative. So I'm just grateful that He did that for us, and He's still doing that. So
Yes, it is. Did you have a question for them, Eva?
I just,
Yeah.
okay, so
yeah,
we went through all of those different areas
Yeah.
of the relationship. So what stage of the relationship are you in now? Like, do you all, is it a place where you're still dating? Are you still seeing if marriage is the answer for you two? Or is it just confirmed by everything that's happened thus far that is what the outcome will be?
I believed. So I would say
right.
with us, I feel like we actually in faith put the forward momentum of our relationship on hold, because at a certain point I was so broken down that I couldn't even function. Like, I didn't have it was hard enough to make a cup of coffee and walk. Like that's how much sleep I lost. If I got up out the bed, made a cup of coffee, and took a walk around the block for 20 minutes, that was a victory for me.
Wow.
I had lost so much sleep and was at the teetering edge of what felt like insanity that I had to put like everything down, like my business ideations, my calling. I even had to tell Linda like, hey, listen, you know, I don't want to break up, but I need to just like be in limbo while the Lord revives me, because I can't even pray normally. I'm that messed up. And we would have moments where we're just talking, and then I'll have an energy crash that hits so hard I couldn't even have a conversation. I'd just be like, So, you know, that was kind of where we were at moving into when we came to Soul Church.
Yes.
And then shout out to Apostle Moses. I was asking him for some wisdom and just sharing how I just couldn't seem to get victory over the sleeplessness. And it just, once I had repented and all that, it was revealed it was also just deliverance. So the enemy know how to twist things. Like he'll take a good thing like deliverance and twist it into torment. And like make it look like the Lord is, you know, punishing you, but in reality, I just opened up the door to some demons and I had to push them out. Then the Lord showed me, okay, by the way, I had this in mind. We can get back to it. So I asked him, you know, what do you suggest? And he says something as simple as go get a job. Now for me that was hard because I had just really put all my weight and effort behind this record label, and the Lord had honored that, but I had got out of line. You know, my discipline had kind of got wonky. Everything. I just needed a reset. So I heard his encouragement to get a job, and I was like, well, that's humbling. But I trust him, because at that point, every time we came to Soul Church, we got prophesied over in a specific way that I could not deny. So, like that was part of my process. Like, all right, the Lord's speaking to me 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week. I'm sold. The Holy Spirit's here. We're covered. I'm gonna submit to this leadership.
Yeah.
So we went, and he told me to get a job, and I just started pondering. Like, okay, I know I have this, I know I have that, but eventually, I had to humble myself and just get any job. And we got this job landscaping.
Yes.
And this kind of filters back into where we're at now in our relationship. But even the job, my first day, I was supposed to go. The Sunday prior, I could not sleep. Had like 3 hours of sleep. Came to work and I was like, you know what? Lord, have your way. I feel terrible, but I'm not going to sit here and complain. I'm going to go get this job and I'm going to submit to authority, right? I go and I'm doing my work and I'm like, you know, I don't know if I could do a good job because I'm new at this and I'm half asleep, but I'm just going to pray over it and do my thing. Next day, couldn't sleep again. Got there, made it happen, and over time, by the second week, I was sleeping like a charm.
Wow.
So, you know, there was a lot of inertia to get to obedience. I want to really like stress that. Sometimes when you want to obey God after you're in a season of trial, the enemy will try to get you to not obey. And he'll give you a little bit of extra slapping, but it's because he knows when you transition, he's got no more hold on you. He's like, oh man, he submitted again. What am I can't do nothing, you know? So then when we started working, I all of a sudden had more sleep. I had more covering from what I was going through at home. She had the same. And now I feel like I'm back at the point where I really would like to marry this beautiful woman here. And I'm just dealing with all these fears.
Back at it.
And
See, that's where we started.
you know, what I do want to say too is when we started dating, the Lord actually prefaced and he showed me that fear of commitment would be a big battle that I'd go through. And over time, as we've continued to persevere, he's shown me where that comes from more and more. But I'm still in the process of being delivered from fear. Like I still get times where I think about what marriage is and what it looks like and the commitment, and I'll just start trembling in my boots, you know?
Yes.
So I'm just kind of at that point where the Lord is restoring me, he's redeeming me,
Yeah.
He's redeemed us. Like we're able to spend more time together in an intentional way, a dating way. Because
Yeah.
for a long time that was
Under
off. We were
attack,
just
yeah.
in survivals. You know,
Yes.
people speaking against our relationship, constantly
Wow.
causing us to doubt. And now we have the chance to breathe and be like, okay, well,
Yeah.
what do we want to do together? How do we want to build? And I feel
Yeah.
like we're finally at that place now where
Mhm.
we can start going there again, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
And I just even feel led to just even mention that I think yesterday the Lord also just gave me an encouragement that everything we went through was because of the calling that we have and the specific principality we're called to help dismantle, even in the nation, right? And that's Jezebel. So that's something that I think has been, that's an encouragement to me. That's like even a testimony. That's like, let it be like set in stone as a reminder.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because there's a reason why everything we went through happened.
Yes.
And even just like the specific things, the fears, the sexual weird, you know, attacks.
Constant. You did not stop. Yeah.
Wow.
My first day at this church, I believe it was Nilsa who even just gave me a word, that same thing, that, you know, everything that I had went through, it's because of the purpose that God has for me and the people I'm going to help. And it's just like, that is a strengthening for me to even hear that and be reminded of that, because it's like everything that happened, it's like it wasn't for nothing. And I'm grateful that God just declared that over us, that it was a crazy journey, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know of too many other people who've had that kind of a story,
Right.
but our story is a pioneering story.
Yeah.
Like, what I went through was pioneering for my bloodline. What he went through was a pioneering for his bloodline.
Right.
And what we were doing was coming up against an age-old principality. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways, more on that later, but praise God, I think that God's just really been edifying and speaking his will, his purpose over us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so let me check the time because we are out of time.
All right.
Yay!
We are out of time.
That was a
We've
good
been
talk.
here for
No.
over an hour. I want to say, it says, wait, what's her name again?
Josepha?
Josepha said, tell Linda I'm so proud of her. It's from
Thank you,
Sifa.
Sifa. I love you, sis.
Oh, yes.
I hope you're well.
And so I don't know. I'll ask if you guys have questions for them. Please, just go ahead and post them now so we can ask them. Do you guys have any encouragement for people who may be
Yeah.
going through,
Yeah.
just going through the trials and tribulations of relationship? Anything
Yeah.
that may be on your heart that you would like to just encourage
Yeah.
people that are waiting, people that
Mhm.
may be going through fear when it comes to commitment.
Mhm.
When maybe someone is out there and they are having, like dreams and nightmares about moving forward,
Mm.
about deliverance, anything that may be on your heart to encourage them.
Yeah, there's one thing, and that is that, I realize that there are many out there who they didn't get to choose what they came from, and they don't get to choose what's haunting them in their bloodline and the things that they'll have to war against. They don't always choose, and they didn't ask for those circumstances, but
Yes.
those things, those traumas, those pains, those struggles, those deliverance journeys that God has ordained them to go through, they will end well. God does have a plan for your life, for whoever has that kind of story, because I feel like the beautiful thing that God has shown me is that you don't have to come from the most cookie cutter, beautiful, perfect background for God to give you a beautiful story.
Yeah.
He'll make your life beautiful, even if you came from something that was very dark and very traumatic. And even if you went through terrible things and you struggled, like, the beautiful thing is that God is a redeemer and he doesn't condemn you. So that's like an aspect of his character that I'm learning in a new way, that he's a redeemer and he's not a condemner. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that's what I would say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Rachel?
Yeah, I would say, my biggest piece of wisdom is when you're moving in the direction where God has you to move, and you're going through a lot of warfare, to always remember to release whatever it is that you're carrying. Because, like, I feel
Yeah.
like the Lord had to show me how to rest in the Spirit,
Yeah.
even if I'm going through warfare in the Spirit. So I would have to create this discipline where, okay, I had another nightmare. Is that going to keep me from resting in the Spirit? And then I had to be very diligent about releasing and not holding on to accusations. And the Lord even took me to Zechariah 4, how Satan was accusing the high priest to be. I forget his name. But he just kept accusing him. And then the Lord basically made his garments clean. And so every time I felt accused, every time I felt taunted or disturbed, I had to remember God isn't a God that tears down his children. So if I'm receiving something that even sounds like a prophetic word, but it's causing my spirit to throw up and for me to retch and for me to just be so in a lack of peace that I can barely
Yeah.
sleep,
Yes.
then I had to know, well, this is God's voice, this is the devil. The devil sometimes likes to masquerade as an angel of light, but if I know my word and I know my God's heart,
Yes.
Yeah.
then over time it has no hold over me. But I had to keep on
Yeah.
refusing to partner with fear,
Yeah.
refusing to partner with false identities and false characterizations of who the Father is. So know your Father and release it to Him, because He wants all of what you're carrying.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit groans on your behalf even when you feel like nobody's there.
Yeah.
Tiana says, thanks for sharing you guys' journey.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Amen. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right, guys. Do you have anything for them, Asia?
They
I know
They feel
Asia.
me.
Listen, Asia over there with the allergies. I was
Yeah.
like, my girl.
Yeah.
I know how it is. I took my pill. That's why I'm on. That's why I'm okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to share that I learned from you guys is kind of like the transition in the journey. Like, you know, when you listen to somebody's story, you know, everything may not match to your story, right? So sometimes we listen to a story and we're looking for everything to match to our story to give us the answers, but it's not going to work like that. So
Yeah.
certain things are going to, you know, kind of like hit your spirit, certain things you can relate to, and then certain things you can't. That's okay, you know, but do take the wisdom. And so a lot of things that I learned from you guys, just by you sharing your story, is, you know, rejection, you know, fear of commitment. You know, by you sharing that, I was thinking about it because it's one of the things that I may have struggled with when I first started off, you know, like being single and stuff like that. I was so focused on the Lord. And when people would talk about relationships, I would be like, oh no, I don't want to talk about that. I'm so focused on the Lord. And, you know, I realized that it was something that I was avoiding to defend myself because I felt like I was too kind of like weak and too kind of like, you know, I need to get over, like, you know, I was one of those people where I thought every relationship you have to have sex. So it's like, oh, if I'm with someone, that means I gotta have sex. So I'd rather not ever be with no one so I won't be tempted.
Oh, wow.
So I was thinking of that, defending myself from temptation, period. But but it don't work like that. So you know, so I would battle with that all the time because when the R word came up, I'd be like, no,
Oh, yeah.
and it turned into this whole fear that I will fall, right? It turned into this whole fear that I will fall and that God would kick me out the kingdom and I'd just be so nasty and a little trifling stuff, can't keep your legs closed.
Wow.
Yeah, I talk like that. And you can't keep your legs closed and you just gotta go, right?
Yeah.
You can't work for me. And so, you know, I had to go through that, like, that transition of just accepting, like, okay, I'm a woman, I have kids, I have had sex, you know, and guess what? I may want to be with somebody. So when am I going to just avoid that situation forever so that I can say I work for God? you know,
Yeah.
and it turned into this whole religiosity. It's not,
Yeah.
it wasn't faith, you know, it wasn't, you know, people cover it, I don't want to, and I don't, you know, that's one of the things
Yeah.
I noticed about myself is the language that I would use when somebody would bring it up.
Yeah.
So, oh no, I'm just focused, and it would be that trigger that you would be talking about,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just focused on the
Yeah.
Lord, like, you know, and so it's kind of like, oh, you know, I thought that was a good thing, but really it turned into it's turned into a stronghold. It turned into a fear because there's no balance there. So
Yeah.
it's one thing if God say focus on you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's one thing if God say focus on you and you in the time of, you know, just focusing on you, right? And then it's another thing when God say, okay, now I want you to do something else, and you're like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to focus here, but then it turns
Yeah.
into a whole rebellion,
That's right.
Yep.
disobedience. Now you disobedient.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
Yeah.
You know, by you making up in your own mind who you're gonna serve. So it's
Yeah.
like I'm serving fear at this point because he's telling me to transition, but I don't want to transition, so now I'm serving fear.
Yeah.
So sometimes as people of God, we get it mixed up because we're like, well, I'm serving God, so this is the right way. Well, you're not serving God because you didn't transition when you were supposed to.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've been saying, you
That's
know,
right.
one of the things I've been saying is to check and balances because God is a check and he keeps the balance,
Amen.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if, you know, we lean on our own understanding, we can do what we did last season and this season, and it's a new season.
That's right.
You gotta
You know.
be people of the wind.
You gotta be
Yes.
the people
You gotta
that
be
go
wind
with
people.
You gotta be wind people. You gotta move. You gotta flow with the wind.
That's right.
So, you know, I just want to thank you guys just
Thank
for
you,
sharing
guys.
your journey. You know, the journey is not over. I do want to encourage you guys that, you know, I just really, when I first met you guys, I just saw the Lord all
Yes.
over you.
Yeah.
You know, I cannot say that enough. You know,
Yes.
I just saw the Lord all over you, and I'm just happy to like be in, you know, in the journey with y'all now, and to also see it. You know, I'm single, I ain't got nobody, but I believe that God will bring somebody, right?
Yeah. Amen.
And so I'm looking forward to that, and also looking forward to what God has for you guys, like you promised, you know, in your, you know, to be at the wedding, and then we can just talk about, oh my God, oh that warfare was crazy. We can still talk about that stuff,
Yeah.
but we can also just move forward.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
just thank God for you guys, and I just thank you for your journey.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any questions for them, please, we have them tagged onto the video. Please
Yes.
share it. You know, I don't know if you guys know anybody that's single that's still going through,
Yeah.
or a couple that may be trying to, you know, fight through and try to figure out if God wants them to get together. They may have shared that they fasted and prayed together, that they sought out answers. You know, if God is giving you a yes, just continue to believe the yes.
Yeah.
You know, want to
That's
encourage
right.
you guys there, and if also, please, you can also contact us in our inbox if you would like to be on the podcast. Asia, do you have any closing remarks?
No, we just I just want to just go to sleep.
Yeah.
No, I
understand.
just want to piggyback off her saying thank you for sharing, and we want to get to the point where we have doing it the right way part 3 after the wedding, where they can completely tell us
Amen.
how doing it the right way manifested into a beautiful marriage.
Amen.
If
Amen.
that is what happens.
That is what happens.
But you know,
Amen.
this is a beautiful story on how a relationship can work when you have intention behind it without it being polluted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you again, Adrian and Linda.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Happy that you decided to share your story with us and the SN Network and everybody watching, and that's all I got.
Yes. Please follow us on Instagram. It's at SEN Network. And on Facebook, we also have the private group. When you go to the business page, is a link there that has SEN. It's kind of in some fancy letters, and you can hit that button to be in the private group where we, you know, do chats and stuff like that. We have people that, you know, I don't know if people try to get to know each other or whatever in that group too. I don't know, but that's between them. So you can go ahead and you can enter into that also private group and hit us up, please. We need some people to come on the on the podcast. We need some men. Hello, men.
Yes.
Yes, Tiana, can you get the men for us? Come on, Joe, get the men. And so we'll look forward to you guys. Not this coming Sunday, but the following Sunday.